Will the Patriots be forced to start Drake Maye because of Jerod Mayo's comments, or will they backtrack and admit they were lying to us? We'll examine here on Patscast.
Drake Maye stands looking down the line, past cast screaming hard, got decisions on my mind. Rookie on the rise.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Hey, if you need a VPN, get 3 months off of a 12-month annual membership by visiting expressvpn.com/Patscast. If you need a VPN, it's a no-brainer. Get this discount once again at expressvpn.com/Patscast. And New England Patriots fans are beginning to understand why Bill Belichick approached the media the way he did, why he always chose to keep his cards close, even if it didn't seem necessary at the time, because Jerod Mayo now finds himself in a tough situation based on two comments that he made within the span of about 12 hours coming out of Sunday's preseason game against the Washington Commanders, and then again on WEEI just this morning. Last night, Jerod Mayo told the media, he was asked about whether or not Drake Maye will play if Jacoby Brissett cannot play, and Mayo referred to Drake Maye as the second best quarterback on the roster. And then on WEEI this morning, he goes on and says, "It's a true competition, and I would say at this current point, Drake has outplayed Jacoby." Then he went on to say how that decision will ultimately be about the totality of the work, dating back to the spring and through the beginning of training camp up to now, saying that it was a QB competition, but there's more factoring into it than just who's playing well right now. And this is the start of the backtracking now, because I think the Patriots do not want to start Drake Maye, but they don't want to start him not because he's not the better quarterback. They want to sit him on the bench, at least for the early portion of the season, because they don't want to put him behind that dangerous offensive line that still can't seem to get their act together. They're still trying to find the right combination, and we saw a horrific performance by that O-line on Sunday night against Washington, against a bunch of backup players. And now we're starting to find out it really wasn't a true QB competition, because even Jerod Mayo admitted Drake Maye has been the better quarterback throughout training camp, at least from his comments this morning. Maybe he's changed his mind ever since, but this is the issue with being super open to the media, just saying what's on your mind. Because what ends up happening is you find yourself in this PR nightmare where suddenly you're saying one thing and your actions are another. And that's really been the case throughout all of training camp. Yes, the Patriots have paid lip service all of training camp, saying this is a quarterback competition, and they've doubled, tripled down on that the last few weeks as Drake Maye has found his stride and continued to perform better than Jacoby Brissett, not just in the preseason games, but even in the recent practices. But now they find themselves in this situation where there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You have Alex Van Pelt's input, who's worked with Jacoby Brissett before and seems to want Jacoby Brissett to be the starter once again, is more comfortable with it, and also understands that he has a better excuse in terms of job security if Jacoby Brissett goes out there and struggles relative to Drake Maye, where you don't really have anywhere to go if Drake Maye goes out there and struggles. There's also Elliott Wolf, who's in charge of the 53-man roster, and we don't know how much he factors into the decision of who starts and who doesn't. He's part of that decision-making. There's Ben McAdoo, who was brought onto the staff. There's T.C. McCartney, the quarterback coach that's been working with Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett closer than anyone else. And then there's, of course, Jerod Mayo, the head coach, who should be where the buck stops, but because the Patriots are in this collaborative, open atmosphere, we don't know if Jerod Mayo is the one making that decision. It might actually ultimately be Alex Van Pelt or Elliott Wolf, or a collaborative effort. And this is the problem with, and you hear this in like corporate environments where if anytime someone says the word collaboration, all the managers, their eyes light up and they love hearing about, oh, our team works so well together and we're collaborating, until it actually comes down to making a hard decision. You need someone who's going to do that. And then when you have all of these people with different opinions and different inputs, and you don't know who's going to make the final decision, you end up in this nightmare where you have all this mixed messaging coming from Jerod Mayo about well, Jacoby's a better quarterback. Just kidding. Drake Maye has outplayed Jacoby, but that may not be the reason he starts. And this is a quarterback competition. Maybe it wasn't. And then you have Alex Van Pelt, who has to listen to Jerod Mayo's comments and speak to the media, and he seems to want to start Jacoby Brissett. So he's kind of backtracking on Mayo's comments while continuing the same narrative about a quarterback competition. And it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And it really makes you miss Bill Belichick. And we're going to find out throughout this season all of the things, all of the little nuances that Bill Belichick did that we didn't fully understand with a rookie head coach and essentially a rookie offensive coordinator calling plays the first time. And Elliot Wolf, who is not a formal GM, but he's the de facto GM, and he's in charge of a lot of these decisions, how that's all going to play out. And right now it seems to be a crazy mess. And I think in the next 24 hours, we will probably get an answer. At 4 p.m. Eastern time, teams have to make their official cuts and get their roster down to 53 players. And that will probably be the time we find out whether or not Drake Maye or Jacoby Brissett will be starting week 1, or maybe we'll find out a day later. But the messaging has been all over the place, and now the Patriots may be forced to start Drake Maye because of their poor handling of the public relations, because of Jerod Mayo speaking far too openly with the media. And I think we're going to see, as the season goes on, especially if the Patriots are coming off of a few bad losses, Jerod Mayo is going to be far less open than he's been over the last 6 months or so. But even the argument that you shouldn't start Drake Maye because it's a bad offensive line doesn't make a ton of sense, especially once you consider that they're going to factor in how well the quarterbacks performed in minicamp when Drake Maye hadn't even put on pads yet. And that's going to be part of the decision. That doesn't make any sense because Drake Maye is 21 years old, and he's going to improve at a faster rate than a veteran quarterback who's probably only going to regress at this point in his career. The decision should be based on who Drake Maye is right now and who Jacoby Brissett is right now, because you're making a decision about right now. The first game is in 13 days. You need to pick the better quarterback, and right now, Drake Maye is on an upward trajectory, and Jacoby Brissett, sadly, has been on a downward trajectory the last 3 weeks or so. But the argument doesn't work about the offensive line, because Maye is, as I've said time and time again on this podcast, he's better equipped to deal with a bad O-line. He had a bad O-line his entire college career, still managed to work around it, and it was the reason he was the third quarterback taken off the board at third overall in the draft, because of his traits and the fact that he was able to deal with the adversity he dealt with at North Carolina that guys like Jaden Daniels or J.J. McCarthy or even Caleb Williams, who didn't have the greatest O-line, didn't have to deal with. It was a significant step down, even from USC to North Carolina, in what Drake Maye had to deal with in front of him. So I don't even get the argument that we don't want to put Drake Maye in danger. Well, instead, we're going to put Jacoby Brissett out there as cannon fodder, lose 4 games, and then put Drake Maye out there. Like, are we trying to win football games, or are we tanking right now? The consensus among the Boston sports media, and I would say a significant percentage of Patriots fans, maybe even more than half, is to sit Drake Maye because of what we've witnessed from the offensive line over the last few weeks. But you're going to lose games. Like, that's just the truth. With Jacoby Brissett, he's not the better quarterback. He hasn't been the better quarterback for almost a month now. And because Drake Maye is so young, he's going to continue to make mistakes, but learn a lot quicker than a veteran that's been in the league for 8 years now. And also, something you have to consider is the O-line is not as bad as I think people think it is. Not in terms of run blocking, where they are absolutely atrocious, trying to implement this West Coast offense, this wide zone scheme, instead of sort of the power run gap scheme that we've seen in New England for 2-3 decades now. And you know, they experimented with the West Coast and then reverted back to the old offense under Matt Patricia a couple years ago. Yeah, the running game is struggling, and it's probably going to continue to struggle until this offensive line gets its act together. But it doesn't matter who's at quarterback in terms of the run game. I mean, maybe it matters a little in terms of pre-snap and reading defenses and calling audibles. Maybe Jacoby Brissett has the edge there, but if the running back is going to run into a wall every single play, well, it really doesn't matter who you have at quarterback out there. But the pass protection hasn't been terrible. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has had time to throw the football. Drake Maye has had time to throw the football. It doesn't mean they haven't faced hits or been under pressure or, been sacked. Jacoby Brissett had his head taken off yesterday and hurt his throwing shoulder. I think he's going to be fine. It looks like a nothing burger of an injury, but overall, I think the pass protection has been better than the reports that we've been hearing out of training camp over the last few weeks. It's just the running game just hasn't been able to get going consistently with that first team offensive line, but the pass protection isn't terrible. Drake Maye is better equipped to deal with a leaky offensive line. Not to mention, Nick Leverett was the starting center at Sunday's game because the Patriots decided to rest David Andrews. How much better is that O-line going to look with David Andrews playing 4 quarters out there? I think it's going to improve quite a bit, and I think we're going to deal with a lot less of those fumbled snaps, which Nick Leverett had 2 yesterday. Antonio Maffei has not been great at the center position. Liam Fornadell's had a good camp, but hasn't done a lot in the preseason games, although I think he looked a little bit better in his late playing time yesterday. But there's other things too, like Layden Robinson from the eye test looked like he had a horrible game yesterday in terms of pass protection. Got pushed back 2 feet, and then Sidy Sow ran into him. It was a whole mess with that. But hearing from some of the so-called offensive line gurus today on X, I guess Layden Robinson didn't look as bad as people are saying. And, it is kind of a thankless position, right? You only notice the flaws. It's like first base in baseball. When the first baseman is supposed to catch the ball and you only notice it when he doesn't, it's the same thing with offensive linemen. We only notice it when they do a bad job. And Layden Robinson, his bad plays were horrible yesterday. But overall, it sounds like it wasn't as bad as people in the media are saying. And there was also the NFL sending a message on the illegal formation penalties yesterday, in which Chuks Okorafor was penalized 3 times. Michael Wenu had an illegal formation call. This was a message by the league saying these tackles are moving further and further back as the years go on, and we're going to start cracking down on that and send a message in the last game on prime time on Sunday Night Football of the preseason, just so all the offensive linemen, all the coaches know, like, hey, we're going to call this now. I don't think we're going to see Chuks Okorafor get called for 3 illegal formation penalties ever again, because 1, either he's going to learn his lesson, or 2, the NFL isn't going to be calling that every single time. They're going to be a little bit more lenient because they were just trying to send a message on Sunday. So all of these arguments are just saying I think Drake Maye should start. Like, let's be honest. He should start, and he's going to get beaten up, and he's going to have failures, but you're also going to be in a better position to win games because, as we saw on Sunday, Drake Maye can extend legs with his plays. He can roll out of the pocket. He can improvise with his receivers and throw downfield by extending those plays. There's a lot that he can do out there, which Jacoby Brissett cannot do. And the Patriots, if they go out there and say Jacoby Brissett's the starter because we don't trust our offensive line, they're just admitting that they lied to us throughout all of training camp. Because if it was a true quarterback competition, Drake Maye won this. If he didn't win it last week, he certainly won it last night. But that's not going to be the reason they sit him. It's going to be because they don't want their rookie quarterback to get hurt, and they don't want to hinder his development that way. Now, my argument is, how much are you hindering his development by sitting him? He's not going to get a ton of reps in practice. He's going to be sitting on the sideline in games. And are you halting the momentum that he's really built up over the last 3 weeks, where he has had the edge over Jacoby Brissett? Whereas you bring him out in week 8, suddenly he looks like the Drake Maye that we saw back in late April. Like, that is a concern, and that's something I don't see a lot of people in the Boston sports media talking about. It's all about, well, if you sit him, it's just going to mean he's more healthy when you finally put him in there, and he won't skip a beat. No, he could skip. He could skip a lot of beats, and it's a dangerous situation by putting him out there. I understand that, but it's also a risky situation in terms of his development by suddenly sitting him on the bench. But overall, the Patriots, their messaging has been terrible, as I've said many times already. Their actions have not followed their words. Yes, I know Drake Maye has been getting some snaps with the first team offensive line over the last week or so, but it's been like 3 a practice. If it was a real quarterback competition, him and Jacoby Brissett would have equal number of reps with the first team offense, with the first team offensive line, and then they would have a better idea and be able to evaluate better. But no, their actions have been Jacoby Brissett is the starter, and that's what it's going to be. But their words have been, no, it's a QB competition, and Drake Maye has been better. So we'll see. I think we're going to find out very soon who the starter is. But it also should be noted, and Jerod Mayo said this on WEEI also this morning, that the starting guard or the starting tackle may not be on the team today. And that's because the Patriots are 3rd in the waiver wire right now, and teams are making cuts, so other tackles, other guards are going to become available. Take that with a grain of salt, though, because there are not a lot of great tackles in existence. That's just the truth. If you've ever watched a UFL game, you watch the receiver position, these look like NFL caliber players, right? And most of these UFL receivers that perform decently, they at least get a shot at making an NFL roster. Whereas you watch the tackle positions in UFL games, it's just a disaster because there just are not many NFL starting quality tackles out there. So whomever the Patriots might acquire via the waiver wire, it's a bit of a reach to say that this guy is going to start at left tackle on day one. Not to mention they're going to have to learn the playbook, learn the offense within a number of days before they put him out there. It's not very realistic. That said, there are 2 players that I think the Patriots should highly consider. Not at guard, but at the tackle position. I think there will be more guards available that could contribute right away. But tackle, it gets a little bit hard. But I do have 2 tackles here that I think the Patriots might consider signing in the coming days, who could potentially take over that left tackle role, or right tackle if you want to keep a core 4 out there, or Caden Wallace, or whoever you want, Vidarian Lowe at left tackle. The first guy is David Bakhtiari. He's been with the Green Bay Packers, only has played in 25 games over the last 4 seasons, been hobbled with injuries. He's 32 years old. But he is a former all-pro tackle, so when he's healthy out there, like, he's good enough to start for a good team at the left tackle spot. So if he is signed, like, I would expect him to start at left tackle week 1, assuming he can pick up the offense very quickly. But he has horrible knees, had a season-ending knee surgery last year. He's going to need to pass a physical, and I'm not sure he will pass a physical. But David Bakhtiari, if he is healthy and ready to go, you have him skipping out on the majority of the offseason, training camp, the preseason, so he's not going to be hobbled with injuries from that. There isn't going to be wear and tear issues there. If he is healthy and ready to go right now, which is a big if, that would be a steal, right? David Bakhtiari at left tackle, and gives you something to work with, not just as a bridge for this year, but for maybe 2 to 3 years down the road, if he can stay healthy and be reliable out there. But like I said, that is a massive if. I'm not even sure he's ready to play at this point. But if he is, like, it's a no-brainer. Go with him. The other guy is Donovan Smith. He's played in Super Bowls with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with the Kansas City Chiefs. He would be more of a short-term bridge tackle player, lower tier starting NFL tackle. But there is real value in adding him because if you are going to put Drake Maye out there week 1, it gives a guy like Caden Wallace more time to develop and sit on the bench instead of throwing him to the Wolves or relying on Chukwuekorafo out there or Vidarian Lowe. I think Donovan Smith would have the edge on both of those guys. It does kick the can down the road a little bit more, but it gives the Patriots a little more time to find a long-term solution at the tackle position with a guy like Donovan Smith as the bridge there, and you're not wasting time with Drake Maye because at least you have a competent guy at left tackle instead of someone like Vidarian Lowe, who has been less than competent in a Patriots uniform, and he's injured right now. We don't even know what his situation will be, if he'll be ready to go by week 1, and we've seen the issues with Chukwuekorafo, who really, ideally, is some depth that you want at the tackle position. But right now, he's kind of the starting left tackle, even with all of his penalty issues and everything we've seen out of him. But I think both of these guys, David Bakhtiari, Donovan Smith, are good enough to start week 1 if they're both healthy, if they're both ready to go, if they're able to pick up the offense, and you can put them at left tackle, and you can put Drake Maye out there right away and feel somewhat comfortable about it. So I think the Patriots will look into that, and they're certainly going to take advantage of the waiver wire. Not many seasons where they've been third on the waiver wire and have an opportunity. Yeah, there's teams ahead of them like the Carolina Panthers and the Washington Commanders, but they have needs in other areas, whereas the Patriots will certainly be trying to address the tackle position and the guard position, and they'll probably look at available receivers and available tight ends and maybe adding depth to the cornerback position or to the linebackers or the defensive line. There's a lot of things the Patriots can take advantage of, and Elliott Wolf is excited about taking advantage of the waiver wire there. So those aren't long-term fixes. I think Bakhtiari could be a medium-term fix potentially, but either way, I think the Patriots still have to look long-term at who they want at left tackle, whether that is Caden Wallace or whether they want to address it early in the draft next year, which I think as of right now is a high likelihood. Some other news today, the Patriots are beginning their cut downs. Like I said, they need to get the roster down to 53 players by 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. None of these names are major surprises. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but, wide receiver Kawan Baker, looked pretty good out there, but not good enough to make the team. He was playing garbage minutes there. Tight end LaMichael Petway, who had a decent camp, he was cut as well. Tight end Jacob Warren, center Charles Turner. I think one of the bigger surprises was defensive tackle Sam Roberts, who's gotten some playing time under Bill Belichick the last couple of years. Hasn't been the most impactful defensive tackle out there. He's been kind of a depth piece, but didn't have a great camp, didn't have a great preseason, and ultimately he was on the chopping block. But going to be a lot more cuts between now and tomorrow afternoon. Is Bailey Zappi going to make the team, or is he a practice squad guy? That's going to be a big question. Also, there's the receiver position. I think the guy who's really on the bubble right now is Kayshon Boutte. I think Tyquan Thornton not just going to make the team. I think he's actually going to start, even if ultimately he gets put on the bench because he's always been a great practice receiver, just hasn't shown up in games. But he'll make the team. So guys like Kayshon Boutte are really on the block. Jalen Reagor as well. I think they'll keep him just because of what he brings on special teams, but this is a unique format now with the new kickoff rule, so maybe Jalen Reagor doesn't factor into that as much as he would have under the old rules, so the Patriots are considering that. I would love to see Kayshon Boutte make the team. I would love to see them carry 7 wide receivers and, not even factor Jalen Reagor into that mix and just have him on special teams and keep Boutte out there because he's really worked his tail off and has incredible hands. I mean, you throw it to him, he always makes the catch, and he's a good athlete. That's why Bill Belichick drafted him. Yeah, there were some red flags, and that's why he dropped so far in last year's draft, but I think Kayshon Boutte has done enough to make this roster, but we'll find out very soon, and we'll be here at Pat's Cast to cover it. If you like this video, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we'll be back throughout the week with more Patriots coverage.
Drake Maye stands looking down the line, past cast screaming hard, got decisions on my mind. Rookie on the rise, veterans got the pride, fans gonna riot if they don't choose right. Drake Maye, fresh spark, full of fire in his eyes. Jacoby, steady heartbeat, no surprise. Past cast fans divided, can't seem to decide. Wolf, Mayo, Van Pelt, show us where you reside. Past cast whispers through the night. Past cast pressure, keeping coaches tight. Young gun or veteran who will lead us right. That's cast out loud, who's our guiding light? Saw the game replay, May's got a rocket on, but will Jacoby's experience keep us from harm? Locker room chatter boiling like a storm. Football ain't so easy, making choices can be warm. Past cast voices roaring on the air. Every fan a critic, every fan a player. Clouding up the clear skies, bringing in the flare. Quarterback conundrum, our eternal prayer. our guiding light? Keep the coaches tight, young gun, old veteran who will lead us right. Pats cast out loud, who's our guiding light?